listening to the 14th source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. In the episode for Friday, October 18th, 2024, it's still spooky.
It is spooky, and we've not done our spooky.
We have plans for that.
We do. We've discussed it. It's gonna happen. I swear.
Have you done the homework yet?
No. I'm gonna do it this weekend as well, I guess.
Yes. I will as well.
Spoiler: we discussed when we're gonna do the homework,
and who knows if we follow through? Because what if it's bad?
That's fine. It happens.
But last week we kind of meandered through some things that were interesting to us. We, again, not to. I think this is original to us. We could have called last week's episode. It was just Amblin entertainment, really. And but you advised me to not use that as the episode title.
Yeah, weird. It's. I feel like as soon as you suggested that while we were recording last time, a lawyer appeared.
Oh. Cue the Nerd Law theme song.
And said, "Don't you fucking dare."
Yes. We will kill your families. I'm like, what?
We will take everything that you hold dear.
Not that this is a cop-out, but like, in the week that has transpired since that episode, we kind of have updates for the things we talked about in an episode.
Or we're just ambling in new directions, right?
Oh, yeah. Just brand. It's almost like we're let's just say we're working on the dreams of what we did before. We could almost call it's like a DreamWorks episode. It's like DreamWorks Productions we're doing here. Can we use
terrible
that?
Is I was trying to find a way to just to push. Oh no, we're Lucasfilming. I mean, that's a jump, but it was a jump in a direction I thought would be funny, and I couldn't make it work. And then you went to DreamWorks,
which Steven Spielberg was a part of. So that's the continuity there. But Andrew, you talked about Heartstopper last week.
I did.
You dove deeper into that pool?
I did. Well, so apparently I've got this weird habit now of watching these shows and being a little bit too into them, and then ordering the graphic novel or comic upon which they're based. Right. So I don't know. Did I mention I bought? Yeah, I did. The two weapon grade Walking Dead volumes.
Blunt Instruments.
And so I also did the same for Heartstopper. So Heartstopper was a webcomic.
I didn't know Heartstopper had zombies in it, though.
Yeah, it did. Who'd have guessed? They're called straight people. So I bought, went and bought. So Heartstopper was originally a webcomic done by Alice Osman, who is the person who's, I think she's basically the showrunner of the show. She certainly works with the team.
That's a good deal.
At some point she actually, produced, kind of bound graphic novels of her webcomic. And I just thought, I was curious. I was going to buy a few of them to read through. And so I did. And they showed up yesterday as of the time of this recording.
Wow.
So I've not read any of it. But I did. Well, I read a little bit. I actually picked up the first volume today. And I didn't even start from the beginning. I just was flipping through. And I saw a section, mid to halfway, or near the end, that I recognized. So let's be clear. When I say that, I saw a line of dialogue that I'm like, well, I know what this is. And it was this weird thing where I basically read 10, 20 pages of it. And so it is for those that don't know, it's a comic. It's all, black and white art. It's, nothing too high def. And I was reading it, and it was weird because one thing I read was oh, this is different than the show I saw. But then flipping a few pages forward, I saw a bit where it was oh, there's literally line for line dialogue, from that appears in the show, that was from the comic. And I guess I was kind of surprised that reading, 10, 15 pages of this comic, it was like, oh, this is just, ostensibly the script for the show, right?
Right.
And maybe that's a reflection of the fact that the creator is very involved with the show. But that was kind of a cool thing to be like, oh wow, that like this scene, it's one of the iconic scenes. For those that are wondering, like, Andrew, what are you talking about? It is Harry's birthday party at the hotel where essentially it's the first kiss between the boys. But there's a whole series of dialogue that leads up to it. And it's like, I remember this. This is it. This is.
Right.
And that was a cool thing to like. And I say it's a cool thing because, oftentimes when things are adapted, the adaptation is done by people who maybe aren't as keen to the source. And clearly in this case, the adaptation does involve the creator. So it was a cool thing to think like, wow, this is a TV show that's like that skews so close to the original comic that like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. There are differences. Make no mistake. There are big differences, but I guess I was really thrilled with this idea that, hey, here I have this comic now I'm looking at, and the show that is based off of it doesn't feel so out of touch. This is I'm trying to think of like the worst example of like, well, that shit didn't match. But like it
you know what? Zack Snyder's Batman. Sorry, Taylor.
So it was like, I thought that was kind of cool that I guess it was a not hopeful, a positive experience.
Yeah.
To think that someone created this thing, like they did a webcomic, then they, it was popular. They did it as a book, and then it got picked up by a big studio. I'm sorry, I'm not leaning into a thing.
Yeah, you lost me. It got popular, and
I guess you're right. This story left the Dan track when I said got popular.
I don't follow. How does this work from here?
No, but I like that. Like,
yeah,
there is something really, because there's so like what's Alan Moore, right, is notorious for basically, I wrote these iconic comics, right, and fuck all of you, right? Like that's, I say fuck all of you because every time there was a adaptation, he's so not into it that they literally can't put his name on it.
Literally, like, yeah. I mean, that's part of his contracts at this point.
Whereas, like here now, it feels like so connected to the source material,
giving agency to the original author, right?
Right.
Which looking up Alice Oseman, I looked her up. Oseman. Do you know?
She's British. I don't know.
Yes, that's. But I looked her up after you brought up the show last week, or the comic, I guess technically last week, and like it's a moment of congratulations. This week, Andrew, this last Wednesday, marked Alice Oseman's 30th birthday.
Wow, that is.
They're doing great.
Yeah, good on her.
But like, not only is she a cartoonist, but like she has been like a published author. She's been in the system, for lack of a better word, for a while. There was a bidding war over her first book when she was 17, and like, I think that not to break down the dream of like, oh, you made this thing that someone wants to adapt and they put you in charge, but like she also seems to have some credibility in the publishing world as well. Like this, like Heartstopper was not her first rodeo.
Right. Okay, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah,
it's. I mean, good for her. Like,
for sure.
But now it's just like, I just thought this was actually some nice lady that just wrote a comic.
Mean, it is, because she just turned 30. Like, yeah, no, it's like, it's equal praise and also equal like respect of like, damn, you've been in this a minute, Her story sounds incredible. The fact that Heartstopper is just like, it seems like one stop along the way. Like she had a couple of best-selling books before this, and they were just novels, by the way.
Well, okay,
just novels.
And while we're like, look, this is a meander.
Yes,
going back to another thing we talked about.
Let's amble.
Whoa.
Let's just pretend I'm on a bike and we put you in the basket on the front of the bike, and then you lift me up and we go across the
moon.
And you really like Reese's Pieces.
What's funny about this is that, I talked about Agatha all along, a couple weeks ago.
Are you going to call Alice Oseman a witch?
No. I want to talk about Joe Locke. Like, just the idea that, like, he said repeatedly that, like, his first audition ever was for Heartstopper.
Oh, wow.
And basically, that was his first big thing. And his first thing, actually, not big thing, his first thing. And his second, thing is basically Agatha all along.
So he's a witch.
So it's the same idea that, like, well, this is a guy that just, like, rocketed off and, and he's like, 21 or something.
Yeah,
right?
We don't talk about that here.
Yeah. So, no, it's just a weird thing that just once you kind of highlighted that this was kind of like, well, okay, Alice Osmond is, she's got her shit, she's figured something out, had a really, slapping career in the first, 10 years of her adult life. And again, the idea that then somehow apparently that magic spread, like, here we go with this guy who, for all intents and purposes, is probably going to be a big Marvel guy.
Right, especially with the last couple episodes of
So it's just like what a weird thing.
I think the kids say game recognized game.
I mean, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know what the kids say.
Absolutely.
So that's what a weird amble, a weird meander, a walk, if you will.
Indeed.
All right, Dan, what do you got?
I've been walking too, specifically towards a destination that I was talking about last week. As we discussed last week, Uzumaki had released 2 episodes. Now, as of this recording, 3, and I've seen all 3 at this point. For once, I'm ahead of the game, or I guess in step with the game. Yeah. One of the things I talked about last week was there was some talk on the internet about a pretty serious downgrade in animation quality between episode 1 of Uzumaki and episode 2. And again, Uzumaki is like a animated horror series based on a Japanese manga by Junji Ito. And I'm just going to call it limited series, miniseries that's being developed here for Adult Swim is a 4-episode adaptation of the original comic. And they were right. Episode 2 is bad. Episode 3 also kind of bad. But I have some qualifiers there, some exceptions. Both episode 2 and 3, I think mostly are fine. But there's like weird scenes, scenarios, instances where like whose cousin did they get to animate this, right? Where it just looks very strange. It's either over animated, it looks like someone's tracing poor like 3D models almost. And it's like, what is going on? And so I was absolutely perplexed by the end of episode 2, considering how solid episode 1 was. And so I was like, I just kind of went into animation detection mode. And basically all it means is that I was reading the credits.
Well, someone should.
Right?
Shit, on the Disney shows, it's like 10 minutes long, So
after watching the credits of episode 2, let me break down hand-drawn animation for folks. Generally, animation is done, hand-drawn animation done is a pose-to-pose kind of thing, where the animation director or the person in charge of a character or of a scene will draw the main poses that the character of the scene needs to get to, like the high drama poses. And they hire or they have what are called in-between animators that basically go like, okay, my job is to draw the frames that go from one pose to the next, right? That's only apropos of like them listing the studios in the credits. And as I'm watching the credits roll, I counted no fewer than 9 separate animation studios working on this show.
That's a lot.
And so I'm like, right, yeah, it is a lot. So the question I had is, well, first, why? 2, how are they dispersing this workload? The best I can come up with, and this is pure speculation, is that I said last time that this is the comic or the manga is, because manga is comics. Like let's not split those hairs. It's just the Japanese word for comics. Each chapter is a standalone story, although it all takes place in the same town, and there is a persistent character throughout most, if not all, the stories. Kirie, the teenage girl who is mostly an observer, but sometimes gets caught up in the midst of the horrors of the spiral. What they've done is they've kind of shuffled most of these stories together, and what I think is going on is that they've assigned, since they're shuffling these stories together, they've kind of, and this is not 100% true, but from what I could see, they're basically assigning, for each episode, different animation studios are animating different stories that are being shuffled together. With the exception of like when like crazy, gross horror stuff happens, they seem to be putting their best work, their best studio on that stuff. Like something crazy has to happen on screen. Let's put the guys that know what they're doing on that one. Although with episode 3, that's not even true. Episode 3 is a little rough, everybody. And for a 4-episode show, that's not good.
It's like, well, episode 1 was pretty good. 2 and 3, not so good.
I don't remember where I saw it. It might have been on Wikipedia or Twitter. Obviously, the two best sources for information.
Actually, let's be honest. Wikipedia has editors, so
yeah,
it's actually pretty good at this point.
Some of the discussion was that there's two like sort of oversight studios. There's a studio, I don't remember the names of the studio specifically, and I apologize, that like is in charge of episode 1. And the only thing that matters is like episode 1 is gorgeous, top to bottom, in its grotesqueness. And then a separate studio was in charge of episodes 2 and 3, which maybe speaks to its meh-ness, right? And so I'm wondering if like, okay, so they're going to bring back the big boys for episode 4, because that's the final episode.
Bring back the ringer for episode.
Right, honestly. And so I'm like, I'm really now interested. So next week, let's see what I come back with. But yeah, it's really interesting because I should say this, like episodes 2 and 3, episode 2 specifically, it shuffles together, which makes me kind of more forgiving of it. It's like it shuffles together like my 2 or 3 least favorite stories from Uzumaki. So I'm like, I don't care if it's bad. It's all kind of garbage. There's some scenes where they're supposed to be pretty impactful in episode 3 that are like the animation just does not serve the scene. And I'm like, oh God, come on guys, you had 4 episodes. You couldn't do that. Like
phone this in.
Right. Honestly, like especially for a series like Uzumaki, which is very beloved amongst manga circles, horror manga circles, just horror circles. And it's just like they dropped the ball a little bit. But that's the thing, like they dropped the ball in specific scenes. Generally, I think the episodes are fine. They're fine. I think episode 3 is better than episode 2 in terms of animation quality. But if I were to step back a bit, and maybe a second watch through would benefit, I would want to see like, okay, is actually the stories that are being told, are they being served well enough? But it's hard to ignore on a first watch through just like how awkward some of these scenes look. Like, is this a scene animated by a high school animation class? It's that bad at points. I'm like, guys, come on, you're not even like consistent from frame to frame. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm more curious in like, how are you animating this? Because like the technology has a point where it shouldn't be this bad.
Shouldn't be this bad,
right?
We have the tech. No, I haven't seen it, but I can believe that.
I wouldn't recommend it necessarily for you. I don't know. I don't, because episodes 2 and 3, they cover stories that are very, I don't know, man. Uzumaki is a strange story, and it makes me actually kind of wonder a little bit, like, is Junji Ito best consumed in a manga format? Because they get kind of silly and a little stupid, but all in good fun. And I don't know if it works very well. I don't think that if the terror and the fright work very well outside of the page turn format, because it kind of lands flat a little bit watching it in animated form, and that's regardless of the animation quality. Honestly, the first episode I think is actually a very does the promise of possibility, can that outrank the the follow through of everything that comes after it? I'm like maybe they should have just stopped at episode 1. I'm like, let's just look what could have been. That actually might serve not only the animation, but actually the stories a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. Well, because I say this because I know that the end of Uzumaki gets really weird. And I'm like, is it going to be silly, stupid, or is it just going to be like silly fun? I'm very kind of nervous about the final episode.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, this is a legitimate concern.
I guess I'll have to check in next week.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Have you done any more meandering?
All right, so this is actually like a weird. Maybe it's not my meander. It is. It's so I've talked a lot about how I am stupid obsessed with role playing games, tabletop role playing games.
Right.
And this week, actually, I think, was the launch of a crowdfunding on Backerkit, not Kickstarter, for a role-playing game. It's an old one. It's basically, this is like the definitive edition, whatever, fancy to pantsy, new update, yada yada, for a game called Ars Magica. And Ars Magica originally came out, God, I want to say the 90s. It's been around for a while, and it was kind of a like a in a field that is dominated by D&D. In the 90s, it did something very different. Ars Magica basically is a role-playing game where the players are a group of people. They use the term, it's troop play, where every player has multiple characters, but you're basically a group of...
Wait, how are they spelling troop?
Troupe.
Of course they are. Of course.
It's basically medieval Europe, and you're wizards, like actual like doing wizardry.
Okay.
And so every player has a wizard, but also the people that support the wizards. So like the idea that like every time you play, a session, the idea would be like, well, one person's going to play their wizard doing a wizard thing. Yeah. And someone else is going to be like the other people that support them.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Like the commoners and the whatever, like the people that like help these wizards do magic in medieval Europe.
So you can't just do a Final Fantasy 4 black mages in the team?
No.
Shame.
In fact, I think the original, I have not played the game. I've read a little bit about it, but the whole thing was, no, actually, generally, like, no one, like, every time you play, it's just one person's playing their wizard, and everyone else is playing the other members of the troop.
Okay, support, yeah.
But the reason why and so that was kind of like a big deal, and it went mostly under the radar. I think some people played it. So this is like them doing, it's like their 4th edition, whatever. Okay. But it's mostly like, hey, we're going to do a really, really nice version of it. I think the basic physical product is $150 for, like the 3 core books in a sleeve or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. They have a thing on the backer kit that is every fucking thing ever. Or at least of like what they have, it's $1,200.
Holy God.
It is just like in the picture, it's just like it's like infinity books, like all the books they released in the previous edition, hard in print. But the reason I want to mention it, the reason why I think this is worth my thoughtsicles, is that they have some weird stretch goals. Basically, they actually already met several of them. The stretch goals are basically, hey, we're going to release this game into the Creative Commons.
Oh, really?
So
So you're wasting your money spending $1,200?
Right. Well, I mean, but it's to support the game, whatever.
Sure.
Basically, like, I think their earliest one was, hey, we're basically going to take the core rule book or whatever would be in the Creative Commons. And then they have stretch goals at like, 200,000, 300,000, where they're going to release more books from the historical, like, stuff, like from the books that are part of the current, I think the current edition. And those are also going to be added to the Creative Commons. It's a CC, it's a attribution share alike license. But basically, it's this weird thing to say, hey, we're doing this role-playing game. And actually, people have said it's probably this is the company's, like, this is the final hurrah of this game, right? And then they want it to live free. But it's what a weird thing to be like, hey, we have this game. And one of the goals
for profit
of this,
up until this point, right?
Yeah. The company's, it's Atlas Games. They like money. But just the idea that, like, hey, one of our stretch goals is we're going to just basically make this available to everyone. At least the rules and text in the not the art, I think they said.
Right. Well, yeah.
But like just the content, the text and everything.
This reminds me a bit of, God, was it last year? It's only tangentially related, where it was comic book writer Bill Willingham who went out and said, like, hey, yeah, I co-created this comic series called Fables, and I'm making it public domain.
To the public domain.
Yeah, and that's an interesting move, right? And that's the similarity here. It seems like it's like, okay, let's just, they're not going that far necessarily, but well, are they actually with the Creative Commons kind of thing?
It's. I mean, there's still an attribution requirement.
Oh, okay,
I think,
sure.
and I believe the share alike part, but really, it's just this idea that here's this game, and we're gonna say, hey, it's just available to everybody,
right?
Which and for free, like it is. And people can do
if they
their
meet
own
their
thing
goal
with it. If they meet their goal,
which they did in 3 minutes.
Well, they met the initial goal, and then they keep meeting additional stretch goals.
Right. So I'm on the page right now. The initial goal was 15K,
which is okay.
And now they're at let's just round up and say 367,000 American dollars.
Right.
So yeah, they're good. That's pretty incredible. That's I mean, tabletop games I always feel like well, I'm not gonna say always, but I feel like Kickstarter and we're really in the heyday of funding tabletop and especially like model games on Kickstarter. And so like the number isn't surprising, but that is a number, dude.
Well, it's not. Let's be clear. I believe the big winner in tabletop role playing games is Avatar Legends, the role playing game based on the Avatar, The Last Airbender,
the hit James Cameron film.
Yes.
Way of Water.
The M. Night Shyamalan film.
No, the Nickelodeon show. What you said is more offensive than anything I said.
But because I think that was an RPG Kickstarter that did like 10 million or some shit.
Yeah, that tracks.
Which I mean, the company that did it, Magpie Games, like, good on them. They were like, woo! I always joke that they kickstarted so hard that most of the people that kickstarted it didn't really know what they probably all thought they were getting a D&D, and then they found out, like, this is not a D&D, right? Which is why you don't see $10 million worth of people playing Avatar Legends on the internet. That's fair. Yeah, so to me, it's a weird, like, I've never played Ars Magica. I've read a bit about it, but
are you intrigued? Do you think you'll contribute, or are you just going? Well, I guess are you just going to wait till it goes into the Creative Commons?
Well, I mean, I was actually thinking about this. I think I might just do the PDF option. Like whatever the $30 or something. I don't need the $1,200 everything version.
You sure? You don't need Infinity Books?
I don't.
You live in an apartment, right?
I already have enough. Like, I already have. This is like literally. Actually, I'm not going to put a picture on the site, but I have so many like RPG books at this point that I actually literally am just moving them around. Like, oh, I need to sit down. Oh, let me take them out
like
of
a
the
Professor
chair.
Layton puzzle. Anyway,
So,
check out
I
that
don't
picture
need-
on our post for this episode.
I don't need $1,200 of that.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's
Yeah,
interesting, and congrats to them. Like that's a big win, especially in terms of like supporting the cause of Creative Commons and like just making
that's-
stuff available.
I think that's what I was most intrigued by. Like just they're like, hey, we're just gonna put this in the Creative Commons. And I've talked a lot about role playing games and how like the idea that you could protect some of this stuff is all horseshit. But they're saying no, like basically the text of the books, which absolutely they have copyright for, especially some of the content they've created. And they're just saying like, yeah, we want to make that available.
Since we've started talking, the total income has gone up $500 for the Backerkit campaign.
What wasn't me?
Oh, $600. Wow, I'm going to close this window.
Yeah, right.
This
It's
makes
just
me
watching
sad,
number
kind of.
go up.
Yeah. That's cool. Good for them.
Yeah.
Ars Magica. Get into it if you're into it. Or you can wait until it's
In the Creative Commons.
because they're doing fine. So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media as well, specifically the places that Andrew and I frequent, which means you can find me on Instagram at Bethel Comics, and you can find Andrew on Mastodon at profounddark@dice.camp.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which we actually simulcast the episode in YouTube. If you are listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe, or as the kids like to say, ring that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusi, the other is called District 4, both written and performed by Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music and more at incompotech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 attribution license.
If you like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to leave some sort of review, whether a text review or using the proprietary metric. Help spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms. I guess I have one quick Week in Geek I can throw at you, Andrew. I am the Transformers representative here.
Oh, are you?
I am. I saw Transformers 1, the newest entry into the Transformers cinematic universe. And it tells us the origin stories, spoilers, I guess, of Optimus Prime and Megatron. And I'm just going to say this. There's not a whole lot to say. It's a good Transformers movie. Honestly, it's a very good Transformers movie. It's underperforming, sadly, but that's the problem. They start releasing good Transformers movies and they aren't doing well. I'm like, come on. But maybe the franchise has been tainted by a long series of very bad movies, and it's going to be hard to extricate itself from the Michael Bay-ness of it all. But this is very good.
Sorry, you said Michael Bay, and I immediately thought of awesome barbecue, awesome pool.
Dude, the best thing he's ever done. The best thing he's ever done.
Awesome barbecue, awesome pool.
There was a commercial for something.
It was for something. You know what? That will be in the show notes. Go to our show notes. Go to forallintents.net and click on this newest episode to see the best thing Michael Bay has ever done. And that was the 2007-8 round then. Holy God. That is the only good thing. Maybe Bad Boys 1 also. That's a good movie for what it is. Yeah, Transformers 1. Good times. Chris Hemsworth doing his best Peter Cullen impression. But everybody else is also, if not better, at their job. Very good animation. I very much enjoyed what they did. And I would like them to make more. But it probably won't happen. We'll see. Cross your fingers. Cross your sparks. Transformers.
Oh boy.
So until you encounter the matrix of leadership, my dear listeners, I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
That was a podcast. The lore of the toys.
Shut your fucking face. Honestly, I'm a big stan, as the kids say. As the kids said 5 years ago.
Actually, you certainly didn't write cursive.
Well, of course not. Don't be crazy.
But
That's with Latin in the dead languages category. He's got a big scar on his head now.
he does.
Pretty fucking rad. He could be a Street Fighter boss now. We could just like spend a moment later. We could just like pre-record all this outro shit. We could.
I want to make a joke here, but I don't have one.
And the Matrix died with him.